All right. Here we are, kitty cats. Meow, meow. We are, this is a new experiment we got going on here. This is called night streaming. Nighttime. I don't think I like it. The whole night, I was just telling my kids, I was like, I don't think I want to do this. I'm a morning person. I'm tired. I want to just veg at night. I don't want to think. I don't want to talk. But maybe, who knows? Sometimes you push yourself to do different things and fun thing happens, you know? These are all Gray Hamilton inspired glasses here. These bad boys. These are blue blocking lenses, so that when I'm looking at these silver screens, it does not affect me, and I can go to sleep like a little baby. Well, thank you, buddy. I appreciate that. So, the plan for tonight is I don't know. I don't have a lot of plans. It's not very structured like this. I don't know that I'm going to do a big my traditional monologue where I just talk about a lot of things. I sent out the link privately to basically people in the TLC whose emails I had and that I know and trust and think would be, look at this, Donnie, get in here, you beautiful kid. How do I, Donnie, do I have your email? Email me, Donnie. Email me and I will respond to you. Maybe you have my phone number. I can text you. All right. We already have people here. Let's open it up to play and let's just talk. We don't even have to talk about war, but we can. PVK can educate me on Iran. We have, look at this guy, Mr. Adams Fall himself, Adam. And we also have the one, the only, Paul Vanderklov.
Ho, ho, ho.
Have you been doing, you've been cloistered, right?
I go to classes tomorrow. I was doing stuff today. I spent some time with Freddie. Freddie's getting better slowly.
Okay.
So that's good. Yeah, I wrote a Substack today. I just finished my video for tomorrow. Martin Shaw comes out on Wednesday. So, but I've got a new book that I'm all excited about. I'll talk about that in tomorrow's podcast. So,
a new book besides the Martin Shaw book?
Yeah. One from Kevin Flatt at Redeemer University about the definition of religion and secular. It's a lot of the stuff we've been talking about for a long time, and they've been developing it in a separate silo than us. So that's really exciting when you find those things.
It's like calculus. Didn't that develop like contemporaneously? I think so.
Well, ask the economist; he would know. Maybe.
That's right.
Economists have to study a lot of math.
Yeah, it was developed actually simultaneously.
Yeah.
So Isaac Newton and I can't remember the other guy, but
Leibniz.
Yeah, Leibniz, I think. Yeah.
Was it a woman? Jeez, for a while I was afraid it was going to be a woman. Sorry.
So bad. You're so bad.
Oh, I have new branding. Do you guys want to see my new branding? Since in honor of Ethan just showed up, I'm going to do the new branding. Here we go.
Someone like me has to give you it's kind of there's David and Samson again. Do I need to give you permission, Luke Thompson, to have different modalities? No, that's absurd. I need to realize that I was the one that misunderstood. You are already operating in that space, and I am lower than. And I didn't see from my lower position on the mountain. I didn't see the other dimensions of what was happening higher up.
Yeah, the TLC would work so much better if people always just realize when they don't understand me, I'm just higher up the mountain. Yeah. I'm in the clouds, and you guys just don't get it. Eventually, you'll get it. That's kind of a joke, but it's also not a joke because I often feel that way because I'm an asshole. There it is! Yay! Good recommendation, Ethan. Welcome, buddy. How are you?
Hi.
How are you doing?
Hello. Great branding. Very nice. Great clip. Nice to see you.
I know you said you were maybe going to use it, but whatever. It's all right.
Oh, I might still. Yeah, but I'm gonna like transform it. It's gonna get weird.
Okay, that's fine. That's good. It'll probably make it better. So this is Iran talk. So okay, here we go. I'll just dive into this since it'll make it spicy. So PBK, you know this a little bit. I don't know if you followed from the chat today, but I've said this I was talking to Sam and Tripp about this too. My general policy when it comes to American foreign policy and wars is I'm a big non-interventionist, and I tend to think this is the way that I think about it. I'm a big Ron Paul fan, always have been. He came up with this term blowback, where he was like, most of America's foreign policy ends up creating problems that then come back and slap us in the face in the future. And I think if you go through the history of most of our military wars and stuff, you could just like map it. We did this, and then it turned into this, and then they attacked us, and then we were at war with them, and then we did this, and then that evolved and changes. And so it's just like it's like Iraq, weapons of mass destruction, Iran. There's always narratives of like, if we don't do something, this will happen. And I pretty much never believe it because war is a rich man's game, fought by poor people. And I don't like war. I think it's a bad idea, which is like, I'm not like as radical about it as I used to be. I think there's probably, oh, we lost somebody already. They couldn't even handle it. I think there's probably a time for war. There's a time for everything. But I don't know. I'm cynical. I'm always cynical. But I don't know very much about this topic. So
I don't know that we can know much now. I agree with you. My bias is, I think many Americans are at heart isolationists. That's kind of our default posture. We have these big oceans. To whatever degree we can stay out of other people's messes, better to stay out. And but in terms of judgment, it's hard to know. So I just basically sit and watch, and because I don't have to make a decision now, I'll get to vote on the next presidential candidate in 2028. So
I mean, Congress doesn't even need to vote when we go to war. I mean, let's go. Let's rock and roll. Just start throwing bombs. Sling
my
those babies.
congresswoman took over the seat of her husband, who first got the seat in 1975. We've had Doris Matsui and her husband since 1975. Not a lot of participation in the federal government if you live where I do in Sacramento. That's just it. Except I spoke with some of my church people Sunday who know Gavin Newsom because some of my people work in the Capitol. I said, he started a podcast and he didn't even come by me first to have me rando him. So, maybe I'll get Gavin Newsom on the podcast. We'll see.
You're not on the Rogan circuit?
Oh, I'm sure if Gavin continues the way he is, Gavin will be on Joe Rogan. He is not going to make the Kamala Harris mistake. But America has been in perpetual war one way or another for a very long time. And I agree with you, especially the history of Iran. If you look back at British involvement, and then I talked about this in one of the past videos where basically the US and the Brits got Mossadegh out. Iran had a fairly functional democratic system, sort of a constitutional monarchy that was functioning. And when they started like pressuring the British to give them more of the oil revenue from their country, that's when Eisenhower and the British got together and basically got rid of Mossadegh, who was basically the elected constitutional leader of the country under the Shah, and that sort of pumped up the Shah and then the Shah gets more and more dictatorial, and that just then sets the path for the Iranian Revolution, which has been a mess. And here we are.
Democratically elected, politicians are always great until they're not.
Well, we like the democratically elected ones that agree with us.
Yeah,
So that's been a long-standing issue of American foreign policy as well. We're all about democracy as long as the democracy serves our foreign policy. So
What? The Canadians are in? Sweet.
Oh, well, we're going to win for sure then.
If the Canadians want to fight, then yeah, that's for sure good.
Yeah, Luke, I'm right there with you. Actually, I used to write for Ron Paul's couple of his organizations, Young Americans for Liberty. So 20 years ago, I wrote several articles for his organization, and I used to be involved with Lou Rockwell, one of the arch libertarians, and the Ludwig von Mises Institute, which is all Austrian economics, and so I was very libertarian at that point. I'm actually Canadian and American, so from my Canadian side, of course, is I'm generally non-interventionist, of course, from my libertarian days.
Yeah,
and so I had kind of a dual loyalty, so to speak. My father's from the States; he's from Idaho, but my mother, I always say, seduced him to Canada. So I have kind of my Canadian point of view and my American point of view. But I'm always of the view that it's extremely sad every time we intervene somewhere in the world and people's lives are affected and disrupting, families like our own. And it's easy to sit back in our sofas and our chairs and just take it lightly what other people have to go through. So I'm of the view we should always do it as a last resort, but I'm definitely not a pacifist per se. I can definitely see the role of going to war, using intervention when needed, especially in self-defense. And but obviously these are tough things to watch. And the blowback thing you mentioned, Ron Paul was big about. We just can't foresee what the consequences will be long term. So it already looks like this may have more consequences than Venezuela. We'll just have to see how it plays out. So, none of us have all the information, just like Paul Vanderklay talked about. We just don't know all the things behind the scenes and all the potential ramifications, both near and far term, of what this is going to be. So obviously prayers are with everybody on all sides, and hopefully things get resolved as soon as they can be.
Right. And even, we can just spin it right into big TLC topics. Even if we had all the information, this is like the AI thing. If we had all the information in the world, all the history and all the facts, would that give us discernment and meaning? I don't think it would, even if we had all the information. So it's like, Ethan, who would Jesus bomb?
I think there's a difference between pacifism and creative nonviolence.
True.
I've been thinking about that the last 3 days. I don't know that I could articulate much more beyond that. I don't think Jesus is a pacifist. I do think he practices creative nonviolence. And I think creative nonviolence gets very in your face. The other thing I think is I recently wrote a long article about, it started about being about Minnesota, and then it ended up being about a lot of things. But one of the things that I kind of ended up arguing for was that I think a lot of people are comfortable saying the president is the most powerful person on the globe, and that America is the global superpower.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that's a fancy language game to say that the president is an empire, is an emperor, and America is an empire. That's what I think we are. And I think that when you just stop playing the language game, like it's more helpful. I think like we've updated what empire is. Like we elect our emperor democratically, and like empires bring as much, if not more, light than dark. So like the line between good and evil runs down the empire. But I think we could actually see more and see clearer if you view it through like we're an empire. This is what empires do. We live in an empire. How do you live well in an empire?
Ethan, you said things I was going to say, so it's again, I'm not in the position really to care, and I'm pretty for localism as a stance, but I mean, is there a sin of omission involved in not, if you have the ability to go in and do justice and you withhold the power, withhold that, is there a sin and omission by the empire not to create peace? And is this creating peace? Well, who are we bombing, and what are the reasons, and is there a reasonable chance of improving the conditions in Iran? I don't have the answers to that question because I don't have any of the information, but I would say the calculus of empire thing is sort of where it's at in terms of that's the level at which these decisions are being made. And war is terrible, but hopefully everyone making the decisions knows that. All right. That was all I was going to say. Now I'm going to like go live my normal life, but
What, you're leaving? Oh, sorry.
You can respond. Yeah, I'm here for a few more minutes, but I have parental responsibilities, all the best stuff.
Adam, what do you think?
Well, I think I could respond a little bit to what he's saying. I think, the liberal project is what he's talking about, spreading democracy throughout the world. And, I tend to be skeptical of that project. I think it tends to, often we ignore cultural differences. We assume that we can just transplant our culture and values and that they will just be taken up. And I don't think it's near as easy to just say, hey, we have these values, we have these liberal values or Christian values or whatever you might say they are, and we're trying to spread democracy throughout the world. And I think you can just look at projects that we've undertaken and whether they've been successful or not, what has been the collateral damage from all we've done, and have those projects ended up producing the fruit that we've hoped to achieve. And at best, you could say it's been mixed. And I think my view generally has been that the results have been pretty poor. And, of course, there's often thousands, tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of people that are left dead along the way. So, but it is a tricky decision. It does pull at your heartstrings to just say, if we could just go in and take a wrench and just fix that or this, that we can just change these societies and it'd be so much better for all these people. But I just don't think it's the complexities of people and religion and culture and government are often way beyond what we anticipate. And, I'm in the medical field, and I could give a medical example. You think you can just pull one lever and use this medicine and change one enzymatic pathway or one hormone. But what you don't realize is that when you create a drug that does that, you don't know all the unintended consequences, the things you don't know about the body that are also pulled, which you only find out 5, 10, 20 years down the road. And often those can be, very devastating. Not always. So, it's a tricky decision to be in a leadership position where you do have the power to make these decisions. And I don't always have the right answer. I tend to lean on the side of, hey, let's learn from the past and have these things really panned out. And if, I always say, if I'm of the age where I have military age kids, would I be willing to send my kids to war? I have two that are over 18, two sons. So if I'm not willing to send my own sons to some liberal project, whatever it is, some design we have in some other country, then, or I'm not myself ready to go, or if I wouldn't be willing to suffer the retaliation myself, then, should I be really committing other people to do such things? So that's my general take.
Yeah, that's a great point, because my son, I have no idea if this is any sort of legit law that's in the process, but he was saying, and I'm fully on board with this, but like, whoever, number one, laws should be ratified by Congress. Like, that's just, I don't know how we got to the point where the president and like the cabinet is just unilaterally declaring wars. But then also, like, if you want to approve a war, someone like your closest draft age worthy person of kin should like be the first front. Like, if you vote for that, you should just like give us some skin in the game. Don't send other people's kids to die. Like, let's see you put your money where your mouth is. I think, I don't know, I bet the voting would change.
Yeah, I mean, like on the declaration of war thing, like I just think it's done. Like, I think Congress declaring war is out the window. Like, why would that ever come back? I just assume that's like we're now in a new thing. Like, the old thing is gone. That's the way I view it. Just like,
yeah, I think that's probably true. I mean, we are, but I mean, that's not that. I mean, hopefully that's the trend. Yes. But hopefully that could change. I mean, we've gotten into the executive order thing has just become increasingly more and more and more and more and more. I would love a president to come in and just be like, let's limit this. Like, the executive branch doesn't pass legislation. We don't declare wars, except in the case, like, it's extremely limited cases, which has now become just like everything we want to bomb. But
yeah, I think Ethan's right that generally when government, you cede power to the government, it's almost never that they unseat it, so to speak. The next president is definitely more than likely want to continue to have the power that has been given by the previous president. And I think the temptation in government is to always give powers to the people you like, say a president that supports your position, but then you forget the future consequences of the next person that comes in. Maybe the exact opposite political persuasion will also have those exact same powers to use against you. So it really highlights the lack often of future thinking, which is, near-term thinking, short-term thinking versus future thinking. Whatever powers you give today could be used against you in the future. And, maybe somebody like George Washington comes along and says, hey, I won't be king. I could be king, but I won't. That's certainly possible, but every law that you always see in government, every power, every tax that they get, they generally use, and it's almost impossible to undo, whatever laws or practices they put in place. It takes seemingly a lot more energy to subtract, get people to be willing to give up stuff that they've gotten than just to add more stuff, buy off more votes.
okay, I have a question for the two of you. Like, let's imagine that you knew that George Washington was about to be reincarnated and like born next year.
wow.
How would you get that child to the presidency? Like, he's going to, this child's going to become president. It's a reincarnation of George Washington. You know this. How do you get that kid to the presidency and have decent values? Like, because in my head, I just go like, I don't know how we're gonna get a president with decent values. Like, every system that exists is like, at this point, just so corrupt that they're gonna end up just corrupt.
Neil, that's smart. That's a good idea. Yeah, I don't, I mean, your question is interesting because it's kind of it's a cultural thing. Paul left. I know he's a big Adam Smith guy, but I think that's part of the wealth of nations. I think is that, I mean, we essentially, capitalism, American democracy, all that, it gives you what you want, but like it's all contingent on the people and what they want. So it really is just like this emergent egregore spiritual thing that's happening in America. And so like someone like George Washington would never, I mean, that's what gets me so frustrated about politics usually, and why I don't largely talk about it, is like the kinds of presidents that we need aren't going to get elected. You know, so like someone like George Washington, like everybody loves to, like in their Sunday school answer, they're just like, George Washington is great, wonderful president, statesman, all that kind of stuff. If he was just here today and somehow you could just like matrix into his brain everything that was going on in America so that he was just caught up to date and he just had his wisdom, no one would ever vote for him. I mean, it's because I don't know, because I don't know why. I mean, I think it's that we're, I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I think it's just because we are delusional. And the system is so corrupt, because really, like I was a big, I mean, I've told this story before, but I was a big Ron Paul supporter the last time he ran for president. And I was living in Iowa at the time. I caucused for him. Like I was all in. I was like, I'm going to do this as hard as I can do it. He got to the Republican National Convention. He had a bunch of delegates, all these people supporting him. But the way that the national conventions work is that the Republican National Convention, the Democratic National Convention, they set it all up. It's run by the heads of that organization. They put all the Ron Paul delegates on a bus until the Roberts Rule of Orders was over and all the voting was over. They put him on a bus, and the bus driver just like drove him around the convention center until the voting was over. And I'm just like, okay, so like there's no,
It's so smart.
so like it's just, so like there's no point. Because like that's the myth. That's a little bit of the myth of our democracy. But then people want to go just like straight democracy. But that's my favorite little. I saw it in some restaurant somewhere. It was probably in Iowa City, where it was like democracy is where two idiots outvote a genius. Like that's basically popular democracy. So we're playing with these levels of principality. I want to get your guys' response, but I also want to push. I'm just going to share this because I want to push this video. I mean, it's gotten a lot of views because it's OG Rose. It's old Daniel, you know, this old Daniel OG Rose, but the artist's role in society with Daniel Garner. So our boy Ian, new member of the Corner, Insight Incorporated, had this conversation. I mean, it's already got 400 views or something, but Daniel, in a very good way, I mean, I'm sure I have a comment in here somewhere where he talks about it. Like the problem with the road to hell is paved with good intentions. There are parts within this conversation where he explicitly talks about a lot of what I'm trying to get at when I say all institutions are inherently demonic, and why. Here, let me find it, because I think I put it in here where the impossibility of the good to scale, because that's always been a question of mine, is like, does the good scale? However, I'm probably going to look for it, and it's going to be like one of those things where YouTube put the comment on another video. Oh, no, here we go. Let's play it.
The institution, the lower the probability that the people in it is virtuous to correct its lack of a tendency toward the virtuous, right? Like an institution is a tool. It's neither good nor bad. It depends on how it's using. But there is something about scale that increases the probability that it is used for bad. Why exactly that is, Friedrich Hayek has this lovely part, I think, in The Road to Serfdom, where he talks about why the worst get to the top. It gets into various dynamics that the top of an organization basically selects for sociopaths and psychopaths, but we can get into that. And then there's also the wonderful Leopard Coe in his book, The Breakdown of Nations, that talks about this problem. It's the problem of scale.
Sorry,
Please.
just because I want to read that what was the first thing that you wrote?
Why the
mentioned there?
Worst Get to the Top by Friedrich Hayek. I adore Friedrich Hayek. I think he's really important. And the other one is Leopard Coe, who's a less known thinker, but he was friends with Ivan Illich, and his book, The Breakdown of Nations, is very good. And basically the argument for Mr. Coe is that often we think the problem is left versus right. We on the right think the left is the problem, or we on the left think the right is the problem. And there's this idea that the problem is it's either left or right, or, conservative versus communism or whatever. The point he makes is that any system at large enough of a scale becomes problematic. Like capitalism on large enough of a scale is a problem. Communism on large enough of a scale is a problem. Conservatism on large enough of a scale is a problem. He said we focus way too much between the options and not the scale, when really there is a certain scale when all possible systems become tyrannical and problematic, right? Now, whether you buy that premise or not, I think he's offering a very important kind of wrinkle in the common political map. It's that we think too often between left and right and not enough between big and small, right? And there's also that book, Small is Beautiful, that talks about some of this kind of stuff. But then, of course, nevertheless, there seems to be a problem of scale that has to be considered. I like to talk about the difference between scale and spread. And a lot of what we're doing online, the social coordination mechanism, is an address of spread to deal with the pathologies of scale. Because culture making is a matter of spread, not scale. It's grassroots, small people, bunch of people have, YouTube channels doing conversations like this on the TLC. And that's actually how you make culture making. And then when you read book like Randall Collins or To Change the World, like spread absolutely changes culture. But one of the reasons it's hard for people to do is because they're tempted by scale, and they can't tell the difference between scale and spread. And spread is how you keep things human. And there's something about scale is that institutions naturally become, Luke likes to say demonic. Institutions, like they have this tendency toward the demonic because size does something to the subjectivity of the people in them. Does it have to? No, because I'm not a determinist, but probabilistically, it probably will. And then if the majority of things are that size, it's just a matter of probability that it's going to be problematic. One of the things I like to say, then I'll get to your question, is that, is it technically determined that people will become bad at scale? No, but it's practically determined that they will. And I think the practical is more real than the technical. We tend to associate the technical as being the truth and the practical is the false. Like what's technically true is true and what's practically true is not. No. It's the exact reverse. What's practically true is the true. And the technical is inconsequential because of personal knowledge. And we're persons, right? So the practical is more real than the technical. And that's very important. We emphasize the technical too much and don't emphasize the practical enough because that's the reality, because we live in practice. We live as human beings. So, the Leopard Coe stuff, Breakdown of Nations, is very, very important. And what I think also, like what you're saying with certainty, this is very, very important, is the brain naturally wants certainty because it doesn't want surprise. It wants to save energy.
All right, that's. I mean, they're going on to other stuff. The whole thing is really great. I mean, okay, stop it. What are we doing? What am I doing here? I left many, many comments. Go check it out. It's really good. I'll edit this when I'm done and I'll put the link in the description, but it's an excellent conversation. I mean, I always love Daniel. Great guy. Ian doing solid work. I actually was just listening to, my hierarchy is I watch TLC stuff. I don't watch content. I watch personalist stuff. So like if you're right now, I think Ian, if I just open up YouTube, because I've just been pounding your content recently, your conversations, I think you're like number 3. I think you're number 3 in my subs. Look at that. And I also, listen, I'm also trampling on the Jordan Peterson sphere right now because Father Eric is currently streaming right now. My bad. But look at that. PVK, Neil, Insight, and Grimm. It's my top 4. And then Mark D. Parker. Ethan, you're in the 6th slot. So anyhow, what do you guys think about that? Did that bring up anything?
Well, I mean, clearly when you get larger institutions, what you see is bloat in administrative departments. when the top person, the CEO, becomes divorced from the consequences of their actions. When somebody's their own business owner, like I am, I suffer direct consequences if what I'm doing is not working. People stop coming to my business, my practice. So I'm very incentivized to be on top of everything. But when you get like a corporate head, the CEO, who's not directly, his job's not directly, like he's not going to lose his house if they just fire him from the board. Then the incentives to really maintain a lean structure, to have minimal staff, to be always serving those that you're trying in a business, I guess, sell something to in the best way you can, to serve them the best way you can. When the distance becomes too great and you're not personally disincentivized when bad things happen, then inevitably these structures just become overburdened and full of endless, administrative staff, i.e., the federal government, right? So the government is by definition all the greatest corporation, is one way of looking at it, the biggest corporation and the only corporation that can use force. So you can definitely see the government as a corporation with no disincentives and all the wrong incentives, and consequently you see what you do in the government, very inefficient and slow to respond to people's needs.
Got a little feedback on sub spade worker here. It's all right. It's all right. It's okay. I mean, it's just a little.
What do I do? What do I do? How do I mute myself?
No, I mean, I muted you, but you're all right.
Oh, thanks.
You just tell us, bequeath us with your wisdom. Just.
Oh, I don't have that, but I thought you had like a long list of folk that were 6 and 7 and 8, and I was lining up.
Yeah, no, it's
I've never been on StreamYard before, so I'm trying to figure out what the hell.
The biggest thing that usually happens is people simultaneously have the YouTube tab open and then it gets feedback, but you must not have that. You got it. You're all right.
That, no.
Lower the gain, Brett says. Another bearded fellow tells you to lower the gain, which I appreciate that your response to that is just to laugh, because that would be my response too.
Anyway, hello.
Hello. I don't know that we've ever spoken about what's a Christian response to war, my friend?
You're asking me?
Sure, anyone can respond.
Oh, okay, yeah. My notion would be that Christians would prefer not to.
Prefer not to. But then when is the time for war? Is there a time for war? Because like when PVK was talking about how the U.S. has been in perpetual war, I agree. But then what that reminds me of is 1984. Ron always with the solid responses. The Christian response is to pray a lot.
I certainly have the sense that the Christian response to war is with oneself.
Expand. Tell us what that means.
Well, I mean, it seems to me that any sensibility of doing battle that I can think of throughout whatever history, I guess, Christianity considers always ends up focusing the main battle being inside the person's heart, not between people groups or but that might just be a notion.
So like the idea, back to what Ethan was talking about when he was talking about what did you say, Ethan? Creative nonviolence versus pacifism. I love the movie Hacksaw Ridge. Like that's right in my wheelhouse, as like as a great example of how I understand my understanding of nonviolence, which is does anyone remember the guy's name? The real guy's name that the movie was based on? I believe he was a Seventh-day Adventist or something. So like, I mean, he's a heretic, so who gives shit, right? No, I'm just kidding. But he was in World War II, but he went and he was just like, it's my conviction that I can't carry a firearm and I don't want to kill anyone. But simultaneously, and he worked as a medic, but then simultaneously he was like one of the most brave and courageous people in the time of war in his whole group. You know, like he sacrificed himself in a kind of bravery that was unbelievable to save people, and not only his own people of his own nation, but anyone. He was dragging, like that was one of my favorite parts of the movie, is because the whole idea of the movie is this Hacksaw Ridge, which is this huge ridge in Japan that they had to climb up, and it was like a death trap, and then they would get up there and there's all these tunnels and it's just like chaos and you're going to die. And they all got to the point where they were so scared to even go up there because it was just automatic death. And then he would just go up by himself and he would bring back his own, American soldiers. He'd bring back Japanese soldiers, and they'd be like, "What are you doing bringing back Japanese?" And he was just like, they need help. They're hurt. Because like he was like on another level in the whole war. He was just like, this is happening. I'm not going to try to fight it. I mean, it reminds me a lot of like A Hidden Life, which is also one of my favorite war Christian movies. Because it was just like, I'm not judging this. I'm just going to, and I'm not gonna pretend it's not gonna happen. That's not happening. I'm not gonna stick my head in the sand. I'm going to engage it in the best way that I can, trying to live as Christ in the situation. And that's what he did. And he was awesome.
So Luke, how do you perceive Christ doing battle?
Yeah, I mean that's a good question. I mean, I really do. I mean, I think my broad answer to that is waging war in our own souls, and that like the line of good and evil in every man, and like I am the chief of sinners, and so you're constantly trying to take the log out of your own eye and be the best that you can be. And then I think the war is mainly internal. However, I don't think that doesn't mean that there's never a place to correct or to exhort or to admonish or to speak out against something. I would really say that broadly, I mean, I don't know. This is where I don't want to speak in like an absolutist frame, although that is like my broad conviction. I suppose there's always exceptions to it, but like, I don't know that overt violence and killing someone is ever really technically right on a Christian frame. And tons of people are going to disagree with that. That's my conviction. But barring that, I think that you're the goal is to be as holy as you can be, and to pour yourself out for other people, up to and including your enemies. You know, I mean, that's my broad Christian conviction. I'm gonna mute. I gotta.
Well, I'd probably add that I don't think there is a right answer, because I think Jesus used different strategies at different times. You know, he was overturning tables. He was definitely calling out hypocrites. And yet, you know, when he's facing his death, he was silent, right? So I think he used a combination of physical action. He definitely was threatened with his life, where he had to escape in a moment's notice. And when you read it, it's like he slid through the crowd as they were about to cast him off a cliff, or, you know. So and at other times, you know, before his trial, he's mostly silent. And so I think what I learned from Jesus is that there is no necessarily easy pattern. You know, there's a time and a place for different actions. And I would say, from a Christian response, it depends on the person. Obviously, I think there's a role for Hacksaw Ridge, which I really enjoyed that movie too. There's a role for that type of person. But let's be honest, if we were all that, just like if we were all monks, we wouldn't be able to defend ourselves, or we would have no kids in the case of monks, or whatever, right? So there's, you know, there sometimes you can get away with people on the margins, but by and large, you need, I think, people that can take up arms and defend if needed. Otherwise, the whole civilization is subject to being taken over or destroyed. There's also the context of kids and elderly. Or you wouldn't ask a child or an elderly person to react in the same way to war that you would, you know, a 25-year-old. And so there's always been a difference in how we approach based on age and experience. And maybe the person that's older would be providing wisdom and support and all sorts of other ways to courage and inner strength, maybe getting us to refocus on our inner life and how we are as people. Are we going into any conflict that we might have with the right spirit, with love for that, as much as that's possible, love for your enemy? You know, these are all, ultimately, that's what we're supposed to have, is love for enemy. As much as that's seemingly impossible to do.
So, not to drop this bomb, I mean, jump in at any time, but like, so Brett says Christ goes to war at the end. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what I think about that. I mean, I understand the words of Revelation, but I don't know. I really feel like I don't understand Revelation well, the book of Revelation, and the kind of symbolism that's used therein, and prescription versus description, and the sword coming out of Christ's mouth, and what that actually means. I would say broadly that my perspective on it is that I don't believe that Christ is one that conquers through coercion, violence. I mean, that's just where I am at the end of the day. And I suppose, I mean, as a universalist, at the end of the day, I also don't think that he just destroys those that disagree with him. I think I just can't see it. I think you get into really complicated problems. I think he gives himself for the life of the world, and I don't think that he picks winners and losers with that. And so I think the model then is that you can't. I think otherwise you get into a kind of abstracted, utilitarian, kind of consequentialist ethic that I think is foreign to Christianity.
Well, Luke, like what Adam said,
Yeah.
It sounded like there was something about the way Christ does the business that is immediate. And so one of the things about moving it to like the sword coming out of the mouth, or a lot of the other things like Lord of the Rings fighting or something, feels like what I was curious about is, how do you know, if like Adam, how do you know that you accord with the immediate activity, so that you would know whether you turn the table or protect your child, or does that make any sense? Like it seems like I'm not sure there is a model, but we keep wanting a model or a pattern, so then we can make a decision that's conceptual.
I mean, I think my vision of Christ is that he's a model of somebody that knows us intimately, and if he truly knows our thoughts and desires of our heart, he would be able to push the right lever for that particular situation. Now, whether we would respond in the right manner, that's where free will or agency comes into the equation. But yeah, I don't have a great answer for you. You know, anybody who's been a parent knows you just hit the wrong lever most of the time, right? You think you're doing the right thing for your kid, and all you do is get a more rebellious kid that is going more the opposite direction. And then I've tended to find that if I'm less domineering, it often pays off better than trying to just dictate every second. Often you just, things will fade of their own accord if you don't. And this is true psychologically too. The more Carl Jung was famous for saying this: the more you fight against things, the more you make it alive. Almost paraphrasing, things become more, whatever you're tempted by, whether it's alcohol or drugs or whatever, almost becomes harder the more you fight against it. And it's in the act of letting go that you, and especially as a parent, it's difficult. You don't want to be totally where you're not confronting issues either. But if you're overly draconian, sometimes you think too highly of your ability to solve an issue. Often it's before you fall, And I think because we see Jesus as, an archetypal type, an example, as Jordan Peterson would put it. He, in theory, I don't know this because I can't read people's thoughts intents near as much as I'd hope. But if we could see inside people's souls, then we would have hopefully more strategic ways of encountering situations differently, because we'd be able to see each person with the ultimate love and know what's behind the scenes. Basically, the woman at the well. If we could read the woman at the well, but every person, and could see their history and their struggles and what was behind the scenes, then and then conversely, we could see the hypocrite and all the things they're putting forward, or the holier than thou type people, or whatever. You could see he would talk totally different to that person than the woman at the well.
But wouldn't you say our sense is that he sees every person at every breath? Like, not, there isn't the woman at the well. So that Luke's tough question when I popped in was asking me to speak for Christ, which he asked what a Christian view of war was. I'm not capable of that, but what I'm curious about with your answers were then how, breath by breath and heartbeat by heartbeat, do you figure out your accord with whatever it is one would do to be Christ-like now? Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I don't think I think often you're going to stumble by learning through mistakes. You're going to try various strategies, and I think you try to seek first the kingdom of God and his right ways, and often you won't be seeking that. You'll actually be seeking your own self-aggrandizement. As a parent, you'll be really just seeking to dominate and have your kids do what you want them to do rather than their own good, maybe because that gets things done in the moment rather than gets them to learn in the long term. So often it's trying to seek as best you can and love as best you can, but knowing that you're far from that type of person that can love completely. And on the other hand, there's sometimes you shirk from your responsibility just because you don't want to have to deal with the repercussions. So really, it's the loving thing to do, but you avoid it. I know I do this a lot too as a parent. It's just avoid the confrontation because it's hard, especially with my wife. When she confronts me with things, that's when I tend to get the most animated. It's hard to be shown your own faults and your own weakness, as wives are often very good at pointing out. So I think for me personally, approach it with humility. Often I think reacting too quickly is another issue. If you can be patient and not, even like events, let them sit for a day or two before you react to them. That's often something that's wise, before your immediate motion takes over, and that can be very dangerous because you react to, just based on emotion rather than love. But I'm far from having a great answer to this, believe me.
So we got some new people. We got Jacob and Risto and old name tag here. The one thought I want to add into what you guys were talking about, though, I want to hear what these guys have to say, is that something I was thinking in terms of my broad policy of non-interventionism and how I think of these things in terms of fractally is that, like, even in families, you guys remember when Jordan Peterson talked about in his clinical practice, the patients that he's like the most troubled patients that he had by far were the people whose parents were overactive in their lives, like the helicopter parents, the people who were always intervening, who were trying to fix everything, to like make everything right, to make their kids the best possible kids. And he's like, those kids were by far the most messed up. He was like, kids that were the least messed up, or he said kids were much better off if their parents just left them alone. Like kids of neglect are almost better off than hyperactive intervening parents. I think it's the same on a state level. I think it's the same reality. Anyhow, go ahead. One of you new guys, what do you think?
I think that I mean that might be true to some extent, but I mean I know plenty of people who were had hands-off parents, and they were just like chaotic monsters, like for real. And I think that's what we see when you get a little too hands-off in the governing, like in this, as far as state stuff goes. But maybe I'm speaking up too soon. I don't really have a lot of time. I just want to say hi.
Hey,
and why
buddy.
are you wearing sunglasses at night, bro?
These are blue blockers so that I can sleep, man. These are blocking the blue light. I'm life hacking.
Oh,
all right. This is Gray Hamilton. Listen, he is a professional tennis player, an elite athlete, and he told me that I should wear these. So I just listened to him, Yeah, plus they look cool. I'm maxing.
Every group of friends needs a clavicular.
Okay. Yeah. Jacob, what are your general thoughts? I'm glad you're here. What are your general thoughts on Iran? What's going on? Talk to us. Because, I mean, I know you know so much more about this than I do.
Well, I mean, I have been streaming almost endlessly for a month now about Iran.
Right.
So if people want to know what I think, I mean, I talk too much already. Anyway, the reason, even though tonight is a Jewish holiday, when I got your invitation, I felt like I needed to come on. Is I suspected that I would be hearing a bunch of pacifist bullshit. And there's a special place in hell for people who watch other people get raped and murdered and think they're too holy to get involved.
I mean, I feel you with that, but that's different. That's kind of different than I think, because I agree with like there's a certain kind of understanding of pacifism that is not like what I'm talking about. It's more like I'm much more in line of what Ethan is talking about of like creative nonviolence, and even like there's certain definitions of
bullshit.
Hmm?
That's bullshit. If your neighbor is being raped, and you're sitting around thinking about your how you are going to creatively be nonviolent, you can go and fuck off, you asshole.
That's not. But Jacob, you know, like if my neighbor was getting raped and I knew they were getting raped, I wouldn't sit around thinking about how I could be nonviolent. That's never what I would do. So,
Okay.
like you're straw manning.
So I want Americans to understand. There's a reason I pulled that tweet up. If you want to show it.
Okay. Yep.
I was at a demonstration yesterday, and all we could talk about was how naive Americans are about the evil in the world they live in. Okay. Ayatollah Khomeini, the previous Ayatollah, not the one who got turned into mincemeat, made a ruling that since there is an idea that virgins go to heaven, women who were under capital punishment were to be raped before they were put to death. And Iran actually did that. And as far as I know, they still do that, although they deny it. If you cannot understand what it means to live in a country, right? The same week, people in Minnesota were talking about unarmed protesters being executed in the streets when 2 people died who were not being executed in the streets. Iran used vehicle-mounted heavy machine guns on unarmed protesters, killing what they claim to be only 3,117 people. Most numbers are over 6,000. CBS claims 18,000. The opposition says 30 to 50,000. It's not clear because one of the things that happened was they were going to the hospitals and executing people. So people weren't going to the hospital. They were using shotguns. Tens of thousands of people lost eyes. Tens of thousands of people are disfigured. But Americans can't understand that, and I envy them that. I love them for that. I wish that type of naivete on everyone, except when you realize that there are billions of people living outside the United States in situations like that. And, you know, I keep on thinking of where it says God will judge the living and the dead. And the rabbis say evil people during their lives are called dead, and and good people, even after their death, they're called living. Right? And when you have someone who has the opportunity, the capacity to stand up to evil and they don't, I think those people need to be judged for being living and dead at the same time. Because they refuse to stand and love other people in the face of evil. I was at a demonstration yesterday. Where's my flag? I think I got a Persian flag at the demonstration yesterday. People were dancing in the streets because their own country was being bombed. Apparently over 100 little girls in an elementary school died. Because that's what it means to be bombed. That's what it means for your country to be bombed. For the United States and Israel to bomb your country. And when I was talking to the people who were dancing in the streets, they said, maybe we will die and maybe my kids will live. And if you can't understand that, I don't know what to say to you.
Like, Nathan, do you have thoughts? Because
Well, it was just I'm new here, so I don't know Jacob, but he sounds like an American.
He is.
I received in 1985, I came here as a refugee, and I became a U.S. citizen in 1994. I love the United States. The fact that 3 U.S. servicemen died hangs heavy on my heart. And the fact General Kane today said it is likely that more Americans are going to die. I have a very hard time saying to Americans, yes, I am willing to let our servicemen die to help Iranians because I hate that shithole country I came from.
Well,
I really do.
What I meant was you started your talking by saying something towards Americans. And I don't know what that means for you, that word, but you also sounded like an American. That's what's curious to me. Like,
I am incredibly proud to be an American. I sometimes jokingly say no one should be allowed. I want to get rid of birthright citizenship because no one deserves the privilege to be born in the United States. I think everyone should have to go live in another country and apply because it's just too good to be hereditary. It's just too much of a privilege.
Well, yeah. So
and Americans don't appreciate it. They don't get it. They don't understand. They can't. How can you understand when you've never been in the darkness? How can you understand what it's like not to have the light?
All right. Riso, you haven't said anything. Do you have thoughts? And we have Sherry in here too. Also, I just want to say this whole night streaming thing is an experiment. This is my first time. I'm just sending out emails to people that I know. People are mad I haven't sent them the email. I've sent about 5 more since we've been doing this. I'm figuring it out, people. Cut me a little grace. This isn't like a completely open stream. I'm trying something a little new. So anyhow, but Sherry, pleasure to see you. I feel like we have not been virtually hanging out in quite a while. So anyhow, it's great to see you. You and Risto have some thoughts?
I've just been listening for a short time, and I was thinking to myself, I'm like jumping into a war room, and I'm going to offer coffee and tea. I don't know what to say. I heard Jacob. I've been thinking about you a lot, Jacob. I can't imagine what you're going through. Must be a mix of emotions, I can imagine. And I don't know if you're specifically talking about what's going on in Iran at the moment, but there sure are a lot of Iranians that are really, really happy right now.
So the demonstrations in Toronto and Munich have been a lot larger than in Los Angeles, despite the fact there's more Persians in Los Angeles, because the ones of us here in Los Angeles, even though I went and there's videos on my channel. My mom sent me a video of my dad dancing in the streets at the demonstration, and I didn't see it. My cousin was also there, but a lot of the people who've been here for 40 years, first of all, they don't want to get their hopes up. But it's the newer immigrants who couldn't get into the United States, who ended up in Germany and ended up in Canada. So the demonstrations in Toronto and Munich have been much larger than the demonstrations here in Los Angeles, despite the fact we have many more Persians here in Los Angeles, because we've been here longer. We've given up, a lot of us have given up on Iran.
Jacob, I have to tell you that when this all happened, it was almost full moon, and I was standing outside, and there's still snow on the ground. So when the moon is almost full, everything lights up. And I remembered the story you told about your dad. And I thought, isn't this interesting? Because can you tell that story for everybody here? Because it's a really beautiful story. And there's a Bible verse that goes with it.
So, a song of ascents, I raise my eyes to the mountains. From where does my help come from? In our liturgy, the liturgy of Eastern Jews, you could call it the Eastern Rite of Orthodox Judaism. We recite that psalm towards the end of the evening prayers every night. And my father speaks Hebrew, and he told me that when he first understood what that psalm says, so there's a line, Vayom hashemesh lo yakeka vayareach balayla. During the day, the sun will not strike you, and the moon at night. And he said, ever since I understood the meaning of that psalm, I understand what it means to be struck by the sun. I didn't understand what it means to be struck by the moon. And so the first time we tried to leave Iran, my father, we got caught. My father went to jail. He was convicted as a Zionist spy. Sorry, I'm getting emotional. And the second time, so my mom, my sister, and I, so children are on their mother's passports in Iran, and we were able to get a passport, and my mom, my sister, and I flew out. And long story short, we made it to the United States, and my dad, he had to get through the borders. And so he spent 3 days walking at nights and sleeping by day to get through the mountain ranges between Iran and Turkey. And the night he got to the border, so he was on a hill, and apparently the border goes through where there's a ravine or something, or a valley. And my dad said when they got there, it was a full moon. And if you've ever been out in the middle of nowhere in a full moon, you know, feels like it's broad daylight. And my dad said he was scared because they could catch him again. And he said, then I remembered Song of Ascents. I raised my eyes to the mountains. From where will my help come? My help comes from God. I won't translate all the verses, but he got to that verse. The sun will not strike you by day, and the evening and the moon by night. He said, then I understood that verse, and all of my fear went away. I just walked straight across.
Thank you, Jake.
Thank you, Sharon.
That's what I thought of when I saw that moon on that night. I thought of your dad, and I wondered if he was out there dancing in the streets, actually.
You know what? I'm gonna pull up this. My mom sent me this video. Let me see if I can pull it up. Of my dad dancing in the street. Let's see if I can do this. There we go. I don't think you're going to get sound with this, but this is my
Wow. That's really where the rubber hits the road, doesn't it?
Yeah, I was of two minds buying a American flag. I don't usually do non-American flags, but it's the monarchist flag.
So broadly, you are pleased with what's going on.
I honestly, like I messaged to you, I have been a lot more pessimistic than a lot of people. As ridiculous as this statement sounds, even to my ears, this war is going so much better than I had hoped. I have a very, very hard time being optimistic. I expect tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people to die, if not millions, before this is over. This is not going to be a quick war. People who think it's a few days, no. It's going to be at least a couple of weeks. And for the first time in my life, Iran could possibly disintegrate. And that would be horrible for millions and millions of people, maybe billions of people. But thanks to the miracles of modern technology and AI and hacking, so what worries me the most is that in Iran there's three large military organizations. There's the regular military, which is a conscript military, and while there's a very small hope that they might turn, it's not clear what would happen. Then there's the Revolutionary Guard, which these people are fanatics. They run not only do they run a military operation, but they run the entire economy of the country. And it's like a mafia that's running a country. And then there are the Basijis, which are militias of young men, devout Muslims usually, who are soccer hooligans with an excuse to go around murdering people. And soccer hooligans with an excuse to murder people will go ahead and do that, and they have been. And I saw no hope for the Basij or the IRGC to be turned, and so somebody is going to have to raise an army and put them down. And that's even if the Artesh gets involved, the regular army, the conscript army gets involved against them, you're talking about a civil war. And hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people would die. It appears that Israel has hacked Iran's traffic cameras, at least in Tehran, for years now. And with the experience that Israel has, they seem to be degrading not just the IRGC, but also the Basij, which I thought would be impossible to kill these people without killing lots of civilians. I still don't know if they'll be able to kill these people without killing lots of civilians. But every indication is that something which I thought was impossible, which is killing these people from the air. Apparently suicide drones are able to do things I didn't imagine. And so the IRGC and the Basijis are being slaughtered And I don't celebrate anyone's death. I didn't celebrate Khamenei's death. Funny enough, when Khomeini died, my father told my sister and me not to celebrate. So I was a little surprised that he ended up dancing in the streets. But so, okay, for me, this is very indicative. Ever since Trump killed Soleimani a few years ago, Persians have been making mincemeat jokes. There's a mincemeat patty that Persians make called kotlet. It's just a mincemeat patty with some onions and potatoes. It's called kotlet. And because you can't publicly celebrate the death of somebody like Soleimani in Iran, Persians celebrate by making kotlet. A few years ago, a Persian Instagram chef, got arrested for posting a recipe for kotlet on the anniversary of Soleimani's death. Yesterday, there was a woman walking around with an empty tray, and I overheard her say she made 100 kotlets and they were all gone. And I was talking to this other woman who was a more recent immigrant, and she lives in an apartment building with lots of Persian immigrants. And she said the entire building smelled of kotlet. It's not a cannibalism joke, but yeah, it's a pretty gruesome joke. It is. But you have to go through some shit to celebrate somebody dying like that.
Olson, you've been here a while. You have anything to add?
I can't add to that, you know.
It's a tough transition. I mean, you can go back to whatever you were initially thinking about.
Yeah, no, I don't want to add to that. I just thank you for sharing so much. I really appreciate, Jacob, that especially the story of your dad and then getting to see him dance in the street, you know. There's a lot of toughness, hardness, that pain and suffering there, but at the same time, what's the other psalm, you know, those who sow with weeping will reap. I'm blanking on the rest, but yeah,
with joy.
Reap with joy. So yeah, kind of seems that seems like that story there, you know. So thank you.
Sam, you're monitoring the situation. Are you in bed?
I am in my bed, yeah, but I'm monitoring the situation just so that everyone can feel calm about what's happening.
Good, yeah. Calm us down.
I mean, I like Jacob's stories. I'm a little bit surprised that Iran had this much fight in them, although it seems almost sort of like we're dealing with the ghost of the Ayatollah's wishes. Like he had set up some basically various independent command centers to run on autopilot after he died, and that a lot of what's happening right now is those sorts of kill switches still going off, like, you know, raiding the tomb of a mummy or something like that. So I wonder how much longer that will last.
And it's backfiring spectacularly. All of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he's all of the missiles, you know, they're like Oman, UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, etc., have been attacked, and I think that it's probably serving a very unifying purpose for those places. And I just don't see how anything resembling the current regime can come back from this after alienating literally every single last of its neighbors.
There's still Pakistan. There's still the Shia in Iraq. But yeah, this war couldn't be going better, which is a ridiculous thing to say.
I mean, I've said it before when I was with Jacob the other night, but Trump has a weird way of making things that didn't seem possible. You know, I don't love the guy, but I respect him, and he has a certain creativity and force of will that's just hard to underestimate the effects of. Or hard to overestimate, I should say. Hard to overestimate the effects of.
I'm not sure you guys could see, but my dad was dancing with a picture of Trump.
There are a lot of people dancing with pictures of Trump, from what I could tell.
Oh yeah, there was one of those banner planes flying over the demonstration that said, "Thank you, Trump. Love the Iranian people."
Well, I hope the
Yeah.
Iranian people get what they want out of this. I feel like sometimes I think people think that, you know, whether things go badly or things go well, it's all America's fault or all America's credit. But America doesn't control everything. America might be extremely powerful, but a lot of what will happen in Iran is in the hands of the Iranians and isn't in Trump's hands or Rubio's hands or whoever else. And so I hope that that goes as well as it possibly can.
All right, I'm getting sleepy. Let's do.
I was just going to point out Yoav has been coming on stream from the bomb shelter.
Yeah.
Chazi, apparently the strike near Jerusalem that killed 9 people. So he's apparently taken some people into his house from that area.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got people out there.
Yeah.
We do. I saw you.
Chazi's well though. I mean, you know, he's as well as he can be. He's safe. You know, he's all right. He's
Yoav's here.
And Yoav's good. Yeah. Anyhow, yeah. Does anybody have final thoughts? We don't have to like do a full round, but do other people have thoughts about it? I mean, I really, yeah. Look at that, Yoav. Nice. I was just part of this is I was wanting to, as will be no surprise to most people, I'm not like the history of Iran. I feel like a big dummy. Like I just don't know a lot about it, you know. I have my broad general principles of how I see kind of everything, you know. You see the way broadly, you'll see it in everything. And so I can apply those things, but I know there's always exceptions, you know. God works in wild ways, and so I don't know what the ramifications of all this will be. I just I don't know. I'm not a big fan of violence and war because of that whole fractal thing. Like I know in my own family, that's how I see the world. And maybe it's ignorant, but I'm just like, the nations are like within a family. And there are ways to operate within a family that are they're not weak, they're not limp-wristed, they're not just like being a doormat, they're not being a passive, but there are ways to interact with people in your family that are powerful and productive, but they are not domineering and coercive. And I wish nations would operate that way a lot more than they do. But there's a lot I don't know. That's my final word. Anybody else?
Well, I am still wearing my scrubs from being at work at a locked ward. And today we were talking about all our patients who stabbed their fathers, and some of them, their fathers stabbed them back. One shocked them. We've talked a lot about Rob Reiner and his wife. The world's a much harsher place than I think many of us recognize.
Yeah, I think the difference, though, is like, from my perspective, the Christian response to that is to not respond in kind. You know, the Christian response to that is to be a martyr.
Sure, I'll give final words. I love Jacob. Jacob and I don't think we've ever ended a conversation that far apart. In the very beginning of the stream, I used the words creative nonviolence. I was not trying to insinuate that I am a creatively nonviolent person. I have a lot of guns. I've killed a lot of animals. I've participated in all kinds of violence. I think there are two conversations. One is about how does an individual live, and then the other is how does a nation live. I think those are very different but interrelated conversations. On the individual side of that, I just think that they're like the idea that I have to be a pacifist or I have to like kill someone. I don't think those are the only options on the table. Like, I'm pretty confident that I could pull a handgun, shoot somebody twice, stop them, and then heal them. That doesn't apply to like a national level of things. That doesn't apply to one person if a group of people are about to kill someone. It doesn't apply everywhere. So yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah, and I think respect for people who make those hard decisions, whether you're standing up for someone and stepping in that gap, or you're making I'm sure there's stories of people that have made pacifist decisions that were the hardest decision you could make. You know, that's not always easy, but I do agree with you, Jacob, that the darkness, the evil that happens out there we have a tough time grasping that as Americans. I can't remember if we talked about this, but my wife's family came from Cambodia. So they lived through that. And the stories are just wild. They're super dark.
One of the chants yesterday was Bi Taraf Yani Bi Sharaf, which obviously rhymes in Farsi. One who takes no sides is one without honor.
Oof.
Yeah, and I don't think this is probably the pacifist conversation, or the larger conversation might be for another day. And it's above my pay grade for sure. But I would like to think that there's people that adopt those positions that do so honorably and make the hard calls. But like I said, that's mostly above my pay grade.
Luke, you messaged me in one of your infamous Signal chats earlier in the day.
Oh, they're so good. They're so good. You're missing out. Anyone who's not in them, it's so good.
As long as you've got time on your hands. You said something about you really liking in categorical imperative ethics, deontological ethics, where you just do the right thing and you don't think about consequences, as compared to utilitarian or consequentialist or virtue or whatever the other list of possible ethical systems are. And I feel like, sort of in the eschatological limit, all good virtue systems arrive at the same sort of answer of what to do. At the end of the day, I don't think there is a difference between consequentialist ethics and virtue ethics, or deontological ethics. Just the do the right sort of thing and don't care about what happens I think at the end of the day, they all are trying to get at the same thing. But in our imperfect world, where we can't see the end of our decisions and the consequences of our decisions, it's hard to reconcile them. And I think that's sort of some of the debate around pacifism, or is it right for a nation to use force and that sort of thing. I think about Dr. Jim's analysis of Western films, where America always has this idea of like the good bad man, right? The guy who can use violence, but he's not exactly part of the system, like Batman, where he gets to be violent, but we can't exactly call him a good guy because he's using violence, but he tries to do it in a virtuous way, but it still somehow helps fix things. But we don't know how to integrate that into sort of the full Christian vision of morality. I feel like Trump is in that category where I don't quite know how to exactly fit him into the full Christian version of morality. He doesn't fit in a lot of ways, but I think a lot of the consequences of America being strong and enemies being scared, and there seeming to be a consequence for the sorts of things that the Iranian regime was doing, will be good, and that there's a weird sort of morality to it that I don't quite know how to reconcile.
Yeah. Thank you. Good word. Anybody else? Final calls.
Just some films to help think about. Friendly Persuasion, good film. Been recommending it for a little while. And then Gran Torino, thinking about different ways of interacting with violence. And then there's another older black and white one. I think it's like Demosthenes and the Lion or something like that. It's where the fable of Pedro the Lion comes from. So those are some good films if you're interested.
Sweet, thanks. I mean, you'd have got some points with Risto if you'd done a Kurosawa film, but whatever.
Hey, old black and white, that's mostly there. That's good credit there. So, and I've never seen it, so I might have to check that one out.
Well, I feel like I should say something as being the only female in the group here, but I don't know what to say. I can't have a conversation about pacifism because it's an ism. So I just refuse to do that. I think that we do function as individuals when it comes to situations that we find ourselves in. And I know for myself, in my own life experience, I have refused to fight with certain people and been beaten up by them, like physically. I've not defended myself because I felt that the whole thing was a little bit ridiculous, actually, if I just want to put it in plain language. It just didn't make sense to me. And to defend myself was to engage in a situation that was ridiculous. But on the other hand, I have beaten other people up because it wasn't so ridiculous. And I felt like I needed to defend an injustice that was being done to somebody else. So, I think if we just were honest with ourselves, it would probably be best to say we don't know what we would do. And like I said when I got on here in the beginning, I'm glad to see so many Iranians dancing in the street. I think that says a lot to us. So should anyway. And if we refuse to see that, then maybe we're caught up in some kind of an ideology that we shouldn't be.
Yeah, I think that's good. I mean, anybody that thinks they have the absolute answers is probably not quite situated in the right place. Anybody else? Anyone else?
Well, keep monitoring the situation. I'm sure we'll set things right soon enough. As long as TLC's monitoring it, it'll be fine.
Well, and I think PVK gave his last word in here. Like we're talking about it. I really don't. People should know me well enough if they've been listening to me. Is even when I say pacifism, it's not a closed loop. That's never what I'm talking about. I'm just using words to point to something because I have to use words. But anyhow, thank you guys for coming. This is good. This is a good experiment. If you have any suggestions for how I should handle these semi-closed streams, let me know. But yeah, thanks everyone for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank
We
you for
appreciate
the
the
invite.
opportunity.
Yeah,
All right.
thanks for the invite.
Yep. Good night, everyone.